Hello everyone, my name is Kate Marshall. The name of my channel is called Inked Paper Art, and today is day 89 of 365 days of junk journal ideas, where I show you a different idea for your junk journal, for making ephemera, for making a junk journal, for decorating it every day of the year. And there's usually like 15 to 20-minute videos, depending on what kind of subject we're covering. Today we are going to cover watercolor stamping. I'm going to be making the botanical tags and journal cards for my botanical field note journals, and we're going to use watercolor stamping as a technique. I have shown this before, and we will see, if you guys remember doing it, it was quite a long time ago. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, the supplies that you're going to want to pull out. Any kind of stamps that are botanical in theme. I've pulled out a bunch of Tim Holtz ones here. We're going to use those. You're going to want a stamping block. This technique, you do need a stamping block to put your stamps on. You're going to want your sprayer. You're going to want your inks, of course, and I have a selection up here at the front. And then we're going to need to prepare a base. So, you're going to do watercolor stamping, but you also want a base for your tag or your journal card. So I'm going to use some antique rag paper. These are French dictionary pages. This is parts of the Country Diary of an Edwardian Lady. And I'm not going to use the pretty images. Again, I'm doing backgrounds, so I'm going to use her handwritten text for the background. And I'm going to be using the eco-dyed papers. The digital for the eco-dyed papers is listed in my Etsy shop, and I'm going to be using those in the background as well. And then my base layer for my tags and journal cards is a coffee-dyed 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare all of my bases, and then I'm going to come back and show you the watercolor stamping just to save us some time today. Okay, so step one was I glued my base paper down to my coffee dyed cardstock. So I just glued it down and cut it into tag shapes or journal card shapes or whatever I'm using it here. So glue your background paper down, your either book page, Edith Holden book page, whatever you're using. And then the next step is to use these eco-dyed prints. And these are just the prints of my originals, but use the eco dye, and you're going to take them. You don't have to print them double-sided. You can print them single-sided, and you're going to take them and tear them and layer them over your backgrounds. So for instance, if I just kind of look at the width of my journal card here, I'm going to tear a strip, and I'm going to look at and see, okay, that looks pretty good. We need a torn edge at the top and a torn edge down the side. So you're just layering at this point, layering up your background. You want to get several layers of paper. This is very similar to what we did yesterday. However, the stamping technique is different, and they will be a different overall look. So we've got that torn pretty good. We're just going to tear off a little section. We will ink the bottom of that, no problem. And then here's one for this one. So there's two for that. I'm going to get the rest of these done, inked and glued down, and I will show you what's next. All right, so I have glued down all of my background layers. I've inked around both sides of my pieces. I have 4 journal cards of various sizes, and I have 2 tags. And so you can make them whatever size, and you can put whatever you want in the background. But because I'm working on botanical themes, I kept it pretty botanical in nature. Okay, so next step, the actual watercolor stamping. I am going to continue to use the receipt roll paper to stamp on. It's a good stamping paper, so I'm just going to get a sheet of that ready, and then your stamps. You're going to need to pick out, sometimes your roll doesn't cooperate. You're going to need to pick out your stamps and get those ready over here. And so I just chose, a little flower, some leaves, a mushroom. We'll use some other ones off to the side over here. And you're going to need to choose your ink. For this type of background, I selected the colors that you see in all these eco-dyed. So some orange, some purple, some blue, some greens, different shades of all of these different colors. And that's what we're going to stamp our focal point image. So this white piece of paper is for your focal point. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick an image, a stamp. This is a leaf stamp from Tim Holtz. And you can see I left it dirty last time I used it. I don't usually leave them dirty, but it happened. So there we go. There's that one. And we're going to use peeled paint. I don't know what stamp. At this point, I'm just stamping. I'm not coordinating them with bases at the moment. And so then we're just going to apply some ink to it. Again, this is peeled paint. I don't know what was on there before, but it's just peeled paint. We're going to stamp it on there. And then you're going to do watercolor stamping, meaning you've put your ink on, and normally I'm going to show you the difference. So normally you would just stamp it, like, you know, stamp your image down, and that's what we got. The next watercolor stamping is slightly different. You're going to re-ink your stamp, and I'll show you side-by-side comparison. Re-ink your stamp. For watercolor stamping, you don't have to use as much ink, and you're just going to lightly mist it with water, just regular water. Just hold it back some distance. You don't want it right on top because it'll make it run too much. Just give it a light mist. There we go. It's got water on it now. I don't know if you'll see, but it's got water on the actual ink. And now you're going to stamp it again and pick it up. And so between the two, you can see the top one is the actual stamped image. The bottom one is the watercolor. Now, the good thing with watercolor is you can actually go again for a second generation. So I actually did 2 mists, and we're just going to keep going. There we go. And we're going to even go one more time as long as there's enough ink on there, which who knows if there is or isn't. We'll find out. And then, so the idea with watercolor stamping is you want something that looks more watercolor in nature. If you took this first image, now this paper is a little damp, but if you took this first image and you can see, this is a very detailed stamp. The best stamps for watercolor stamping have a lot of detail in them. They're not just line stamps, they're detailed stamps. So that's the one without watercolor. This is the first generation with watercolor, and see how the ink has just spread quite a bit more than that first one. This is the second generation, and down here this is the third, and it's really just the lightest little leaf print when it's dry because it does have some water on it. It's just the lightest little leaf print. So that's watercolor stamping for focal points. We're going to continue to make strips like that with different stamps. So the best way to clean a stamp quickly is to pull out a baby wipe. We did some stamping tricks and tips yesterday in our video as well. The best way to clean a stamp is just to have a baby wipe handy and rub it off just as much as you can rub it, and then call that good. Okay, move on. Move that out of the way. We're going to do these little leaves. So I like to just pick it up like that, but your stamp is wet at this point. You may need to wipe it off if it gets too wet. There we go. And so for this one, let's go with an orange. Let's go Rusty Hinge. So we're going to go Rusty Hinge all over that. And I will show you the same thing where we stamp one regular, and then we stamp another one with the watercolor technique. And so if you notice, again, I'm using stamps that are more, they're longer stamps because I have journal cards and tags and that kind of thing. So we're going to get our first image. And there's our first image. And see how detailed this stamp is? It's very detailed. So there's our first one. And now we're going to come in and we're going to, I forgot what color we used. We used Rusty Hinge. We're going to come in again and ink that up. We're going to cover our ink pad so we don't get water on it. Give it 1 or 2 mists. You just want to be able to see the water on the stamp. Okay. And then you're going to come down and stamp it again. There we go. And for this one, we'll come in and we'll try. There's not much ink on here. We will try to see what we get for the third image. You want that watercolor look. It's looser. It's not as defined. There's bits of defined and bits that are not defined. And so for this one, we do need to ink again. We're only going to get 2 generations there. And so I will have some of these just made up ahead of time, and then I can just use them for focal points whenever I need. So this is only 1 squirt of water. Here we go. And I might be able to get 1 more. There we go. So for this roll, we ended up with our original, just regular stamped image. This one you'll really be able to see the difference on. Regular stamped, watercolor stamped. It's got patches of really defined and really loose. And that's what watercolor stamping is. This is the second image, and when that's dry, it's going to be beautiful. Right now it's got water. This is the next time we went. So again, watercolor stamping, and then the second generation. So different inks you might get 2 or 3 out of. It just depends. 2 or 3 generations. Let's move on to the little mushroom. I can wipe this off quick. Not much ink left, but let's give it a try. There we go. And put that to the side. And then I do need to quickly wipe this off. Somewhere I had some, yep, I do, paper towels. Paper towels are very useful when you're doing watercolor stamping. So I've got those. Okay, and then let's do this mushroom. There's the mushroom. And for the mushroom, I'm going to do it in purple. There is quite a bit of purple. If you look in the eco-dyed paper, there's quite a bit of purple. That's natural. Eco-dyeing, you do get purple in the eco-dye. So we're going to do purple. That might be a bad choice, but we're going to try it. And I've got ink all over my block from dropping my ink pad on it. No big deal. We'll just quickly hit that with a baby wipe to clean it before we stamp. And then we're going to need our paper, and we're going to do the watercolor again. So I will do one regular, and I will do one or several with watercolor. So here's the purple mushroom by itself. Beautiful. A little bit of stuff on there. And then for this one, I do think we're going to have to re-ink. It's just there's not a lot of ink. This is a clear stamp. Clear stamps don't hold as much ink as the rubber does, in my opinion. So this is 1 spritz of water. Very nice. Very nice. Love that. We can try for a hint, but I don't think there's much on here. Not too much. It's really just a ghost print at that point. And so I will apply just a little more ink. And yeah, there is some water on your stamp. No big deal. These inks are water-based, water reactive, so they're fine. That was a straight stamp. And we'll come in and do watercolor. I just thought there was a lot of water on the stamp already, so we didn't need to add more there. And watercolor. So you have your original stamped image, very detailed, your watercolor, which is just, it's got bits of detail and bits of loose. That's your second generation, not too much, kind of water stamp, but not much. And there's water stamp at the bottom. And that's the mushrooms. So far we have all of these focal points to play with in different colors. And if you look at my bases here, you can see where I'm going with them. They're going to be beautiful. So let's go ahead and do one more little strip here. I think you guys will permit me time to do it. So I know you will. Let's just go ahead and do it. Okay. So there's the mushroom stamp. Your block gets pretty wet, so you do need to kind of wipe it. This is the actual little daisy. Yeah, the block is very wet. Let me dry that for 1 second. There we go. If all else fails, your pant leg also works. Get that on there. And then for the little daisy, I don't know what color we could use. Maybe the purple, maybe the blue that I've got here. Let's try the chipped sapphire. I also have a yellow color we could try. So let's try these. So get that inked up. And then paper. And I did link in yesterday's video the receipt roll paper that you can use. So the first one we're going to do is just a straight stamped image. Beautiful. I'm going to try to re-ink that and then do water. Re-inking. Water. And then watercolor. There we go. That is beautiful. I love the blue on this one. It was a good choice. I will also do some in yellow. I don't know if we'll do it on camera, but I'll try. There we go. And there's that guy. Much, much better. Love it. It's kind of the chipped sapphire is a very purpley, dark kind of navy blue. I don't know how to say it, but It's a lovely color. I'm going to hit that with just a little bit more. There we go. Right at the bottom. We've got lots of running water on that one. Beautiful. And then let's try the second gen for this one. And there's that. So lots of water on that last little bit. If you get a little watercolor like that, honestly, it's better. It's all good. So there's these guys. You can see the original. The original is at the top, the watercolor. You get bits of definition and bits of watercolorness. It's lovely. Okay, so before we move on to doing a yellow one and all of that kind of stuff, let's go ahead and finish a couple of these tags and things that I have over here, just so we don't get too far ahead of ourselves. I will come back and do yellow daisies because I think those would be nice. So, got some water on my mat here. And let's use some of these beautiful little images that we just made. I mean, there are so many options for the watercolor stamping. This is just a botanical method to match these. So let's kind of find some that go with the shape of the card. So I know right here I have this image. It would go, this darker one would go. And so you're just going to tear them. And from here you can tear around them to put them on a card. And I'm looking to see, do I like the lighter or the darker? Either one is nice for that one, so that's fine. And then let's find something that we can use one of these blue daisies on. And I really like this one. So we can use a blue daisy on that one. We need a mushroom. So let's use this mushroom right here. And we'll put it on this guy. And we need a green leaf. And so here is a green leaf for that one. And then we might use a green leaf on this one. And I really wanted the blue here, but honestly, maybe the orange is better. I'm going to do the blue. I love the blue. So here's blue on that one. Now I can come back and use the rest of these and tear them into smaller pieces so that we just have a bin. It's just a fun time to just sit and make a bin of these. They're focal points you can use at any point in time. So now we're going to fussy tear. And when I fussy tear them, I really just want to tear around it. You're not tearing, by each leaf. You're leaving some white border. The whole idea of this is that it is a torn stamped image. So just like this, that little point off there, and that's going to be our focal point. Now you see this is a long tag and there's a whole lot of space around this. Don't stress about that. We're going to fill that in with labels or layering or whatever down there at the bottom. But this is just about the focal point part of it. So let's get the focal point on there. So there's that. Now we're going to come in with a label or something down here. Set that one to the side. Let's do this guy. Again, you're just going to start tearing. You don't have to tear around the individual petals of things. Just kind of give it a torn edge all the way around the stem in there. So fussy tearing is kind of like fussy cutting, but much looser. I think it's more relaxing in my opinion because it's not so accurate. It's more just, if you tore up an image out of a magazine, this is what it would look like. In essence, if you didn't tear straight lines. I like to ink them just because they go with the background, but you don't have to ink around them. And so there's that one, and it will go on there. And of course, you do need another layer back there. That's all good. Perfect. And we've got this one here. And I love it on the Edith Holden. It looks great on there. The paper is just a little moist too, so I would recommend letting them fully dry before you try to tear because this paper is thin. And you may actually tear into your image. Again, it doesn't really matter. This is very mixed media, kind of collage-y. It's not perfect, not meant to be perfect. I'm inking them just so we can kind of see the halo around them. There we go. And there's that. I think I'm going to add some music paper to each one of these. As I'm looking at them, I keep thinking about adding another layer, and I think some music paper and then some of that little graph paper that I've been using. And I think that will complete my look here. And so there's the little purple mushroom. And I did it purple because there is quite a bit of purple in these, but again, you could use a gray for a mushroom or a tan color, something like that. And perfect, love it. This is the little blue one. And so I will glue all these on and layer them up. And then on Friday during the craft with me where we make the journal and sew in the signature and stuff like that, Friday's craft with me starts at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You will see the finished ones of these. I will show you the whole week's worth of makes, all finished and completely decorated on Fridays. There's that guy for that one. And this is a bonus because we have it here. So let's go ahead and tear this guy. It's the last one. Maybe we'll have time to glue one on. I do not know. Probably not because I need a little couple other elements, the music paper and the graph paper, but you guys will see on Friday. So we've done watercolor stamped botanical images, and we've layered them up on eco-dyed paper with rag paper and Edith Holden paper bases on coffee-dyed cardstock. And that's what we did. Now, you could ink these in more, and I do like the little halo look. So instead of just inking right around the edge, go ahead and bring your ink in a little more and give it more of a halo. I love it. It's beautiful. And you have that eco-dyed back there that's kind of the same idea of a watercolor stamp. So this is where we're at so far. Now, what I'm talking about doing is adding in, I can't really find any at the moment, but just some music paper in here, a little bit of music paper and a little bit of graph paper. This is a graph paper, that, and that will complete the look. That will be like where our label would be. I'm just going to use papers instead of a label, but that's kind of completing the look. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me for today's video. I will see you guys again very soon. Bye, guys.